Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Tandreia Bellamy here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Hey, Tandreia, how you doing?
I'm great, Scott. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. I know you're coming off an incredible weekend. Weather was largely nice here in Metro Atlanta, and I think the fellowship was even better, huh?
The fellowship was tremendous. Had a great Friendsgiving weekend. Seven of the 10 guests, well, seven of the nine guests were from out of town. And we just had a great time hanging out and bonding. And everybody cooked something and everybody helped clean. So it wasn't a big burden from that standpoint. And we just had a blast.
Outstanding. Sounds like your fellowship logistics was like moving like a world-class organization. Well, great to have you here, Tandreia. Really excited about today's show. Folks, it's The Buzz. Every Monday at 12 noon Eastern time, we discuss a variety of news and developments across global supply chain, really global business. News that matters is what we like to call it. And folks, The Buzz is powered by our friends over at AutoScheduler.ai, who's on a mission to make your warehouse operations smarter, more efficient, and adaptable. You can learn more at AutoScheduler.ai. Now, Tandreia, we've got a big show teed up here today. We're going to be offering a best practice or two on leadership coaching. We all need a good coach in life. We'll talk about the moves one company is making to navigate this challenging trade environment. Hey, I love case studies and practical examples. We'll be talking about warehousing, cybersecurity trends, all that much more. And in about 10 minutes or so, we're welcoming a special repeat guest today on The Buzz, Ilya Preston, co-founder and CEO with PAXAFE, who's going to be sharing intriguing perspective on the fast-growing cold chain industry. Tandreia, should be one heck of a show, huh?
It's going to be packed.
Jam-packed. That is right. So we're going to have to stay on top of our orchestration, our decision intelligence making, and our overall supply chain optimization to get it all done. Stay tuned for a great show, folks. Hey, two things before we get going. Give us your take in the comments. We'd love to hear what you're thinking about, your take on these topics, whether you're tuned in via LinkedIn, YouTube, X, Facebook, Twitch, no matter. Let us know what you think. Just like Trisha, who shares Happy Buzz Day, say hello and let us know where you're watching from. That's right. We love connecting the dots for sure. And secondly, if you enjoy the show today, we'd love for you to share it with your friends, your network, your Aunt Edna up in Idaho, you name it. They'll be better off because you did. Hey, Leah Kim is back with us via LinkedIn from beautiful Seattle, Washington. Leah, hope this finds you well. And I wonder what the weather, Tandreia, I wonder what the weather's like up in Seattle this time of year. What do you think?
It's probably looking like ours is today, Scott. Maybe not as sunny, but nice, cool,
Okay. We'll see if
That's why I had to have on my fall shirt, because we actually have fall today.
We will see if you're right. So Leah, let us know. All right. So we got a lot of stuff, as Tandreia mentioned, a lot of stuff to get to today. And we're going to start with three things before we bring on our excellent featured guests here today. Let's start with our latest edition of With That Said, which published over the weekend. We started, Tandreia, with the news, including this interesting perspective from World Economic Forum. Folks, you may not know it's Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And this is going to surprise nobody because, as you see there in front of you, over the last 4 years, the average weekly cyber attacks on organizations, well, it's more than doubled. However, this might surprise some folks. According to some people's data, cybersecurity budget growth has continued to decline from 17% growth in 2022 to 4% growth this year. Now, that seems to be a problem. Tandreia, we also touched on a big potential disruption that may bring automotive supply chains everywhere to a full stop. So we asked you to keep your eye on what's going on with the Dutch chip maker Nexperia. I think I'm saying that right, Nexperia. It's been the target of trade sanctions by both the U.S. and by China. It's right in the middle, which has threatened chip supply for large portions of the automotive supply chain ecosystem. So beyond those two stories, in this edition of With That Said, you can see a lot more resources, data points, and upcoming live events. Tandreia, did you happen, I know you had a busy weekend, did you happen to take a glance at what was in this edition of With That Said?
Absolutely, Scott. And the cybersecurity budgeting is just unbelievable to me. I just don't understand how when everybody is getting more and more personal attacks. You can't flip on your computer for your emails or your texts without getting spammed by some bot or somebody somewhere that's trying to. So it just is illogical for that. It's like safety. If you're going to ignore it, you're going to have a significant event that could have serious repercussions for your organization. So
Yeah.
personally, keeping an eye on what's going on and being very diligent is extremely important. But for organizations, that is a must.
Well said, Tandreia. You know, that old adage, you figure out what's important to you based on your calendar and your checkbook, where you spend your time and where you put your dollars. And I wasn't surprised, none of us were surprised with the growing quantity or complexity of the cybersecurity landscape right now. But to see budgets and their growth drop back that dire was really interesting. But folks, hey, let us know your take. Check out the latest With That Said and subscribe so you get it almost every week. We bake in a little bit of leeway there, and let us know what you think. Hey, Alan Jacques, tuned in from beautiful Canada. The Rodney Dangerfield of global supply chain, Tandreia, was the nickname we and Alan and Amanda came up with. So, Alan, great to see you here today. T Squared, oh my gosh. He's calling out the disruptions over at Amazon this morning. And Tandreia, those have lingered for a while. I was just on Amazon right before we came on here a few minutes ago, and it's still down. So speak of the devil, I'm not sure what the root cause is just yet, but Tandreia, did it delay any of your Monday morning activities?
I didn't do any Monday morning on Amazon, but I did Sunday afternoon, and thankfully I didn't have a problem.
Okay, good. And as T Squared says, cybersecurity is boring until something big happens. That's right. Well said. Let's see here. I want to shift over from cybersecurity, which it should be Cybersecurity Awareness Month every month, but also it should be Supply Chain Leadership and Coaching Month every month. I want to touch on this critical element for organizations everywhere: talent development. Now, effective coaching is one of the many elements that go into the talent development equation. Tandreia, you've coached countless individuals in your successful supply chain leadership career. What would be one key best practice for current and potential coaches out there?
You know, leaders have to develop great active listening skills so that you can coach through questioning. A lot of mentees really don't know how much they know until you start questioning them and getting them to think about things from a different perspective. You know, when you can get your mentee to self-discover a different perspective, then they're not trying to think like you. They're really learning to think for themselves, which lets them have more of a 360 examination of situations, whether it's people issues or system problems or whatever it may be. Being able to take a step back, really break it down, and know how to question what's going on, and to really be able to think through and examine it from a different perspective will lead them to a more well-rounded solution. It's just going to help them have a better outcome, which is then going to give them confidence in what they're doing.
Tandreia, love it. Love it. Folks, make sure you follow or connect with Tandreia Bellamy, especially on LinkedIn, for a lot more leadership and coaching goodness just like that. And I would just add one more thing. And of course, there's a long list. We'd be here for hours. But one thing over the weekend, there's a YouTube channel I watch regularly called Pilot Debrief. And it's a former Air Force pilot that flew the F-15, I think, maybe F-16. Anyway, he dives into mishaps and crashes. And unfortunately, a lot of them, where lives are lost. And he kind of analyzes what went wrong from a human standpoint, from a machine standpoint. And it's really fascinating. And one of the things that came out, Tandreia, this weekend in an episode, was he was really stressing that instructors, that teach and coach pilots, patience is so important, because everyone's not going to learn and absorb, and the light bulb's not going to click off at the same time, at the same rate for everybody. So coaches that are patient, he put above all others. Your quick response to that, Tandreia?
You know, that ties in directly what I was saying, because you have to be patient to actively listen.
Yes.
To actively listen, you may have to ask the same question 3 or 4 times to see, do they really understand what you're asking, whether it's a concept or a soft skill, conflict management, or a technical skill. Being able to really listen to what the person says will let you know where those gaps in understanding are.
Excellent point. And if you don't know that, you can have a hard time really making a bigger impact on that person's journey. Excellent stuff, Tandreia Bellamy. Gosh, we could be talking for hours here, but I'm going to move along. We got a big guest coming up. I got one more thing I want to share. I take the world's worst selfies, Tandreia. I'm still working on that, but this is me. I had a great time out at SAP Connect in Las Vegas a week or two ago. I enjoyed the opportunity of meeting old new friends, including this is Dominic Metzger, who's President and Chief Product Officer with SAP Supply Chain Management. Now, big news came out of this event, including the launch of SAP Supply Chain Orchestration. Folks, if you want to learn more about this, come join us on November 4th as Corinne Bursa and I host David Vallejo with SAP, who's going to talk all about this development and the power of orchestration across global supply chains. And I've got a sneaking suspicion, Tandreia, we're going to talk more about orchestration today with another mover and shaker. But are you ready, Tandreia, as I introduce that said mover and shaker here on The Buzz?
Absolutely.
You're always ready, Tandreia, always ready. Well, we've got a terrific guest joining us here today on The Buzz, powered by AutoScheduler. Ilya Preston is a seasoned supply chain leader that's worked in roles for some of the biggest brands in global industry, including Cummins and PwC. Now, about 7 years or so ago, Ilya co-founded PAXAFE, a logistics orchestration and decision intelligence platform that's doing some really big things, especially in the cold chain space. Please join me in welcoming Ilya Preston, co-founder and CEO of PAXAFE. Ilya, how are you doing this afternoon?
Great to be with you. It's nice, chilly, and sunny, so no complaints on my end.
Hey, I love getting weather updates. I'm not sure why, but I love it. And Tandreia, I tell you, the weather this week in Atlanta is going to be just gorgeous as well. Ilya, of course, is in Indianapolis, where it's nice too. But Tandreia, we're going to get outside and get some of that fresh air, huh?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
All right. So Tandreia and Ilya, great to have you back with us. By popular demand, I want to start with a fun warm-up question. So today's many things. It marks the start, of Diwali. So happy Diwali to all those who celebrate around the world. It's also International Chef Day, which makes me hungry. It's World Statistics Day. I think every day it should be Data and Statistics Day. And it's Heroes Day in Jamaica. Heroes Day. And that's where I want to check in with both of y'all, right? So I want to use this wonderful Jamaican holiday to ask you both, who is one of your heroes? In particular, someone that may have furthered your own career or someone that you admire out in industry. Ilya, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so mine's probably not all that exciting, but definitely close to home. I would say, first of all, my parents for, immigrating over to the U.S. and obviously giving us the opportunity to do things like start companies and grow them, like PAXAFE.
Right.
But certainly my mom's been, a very big part of PAXAFE's journey. I'd say, especially in the early days. We've been at it for, about 7 years now. We're coming up on our birthday, I think next week, or maybe this week. Maybe it's this Friday, October 25th, actually. So we're coming up on our 7th birthday. We've been at it for a while. The last, several years, we've seen a lot of growth, and we've figured things out. But those first 2-3 years, especially, were not easy, and certainly there were times where both my co-founder and I, and even our small team at that point, we had make or break moments, and I think for each of those key moments, my mom was there and was very supportive, and whether it be emotionally or advice or financially, she kind of had our back, and and that enabled us to make it through those toughest of times, and here we are today. I think
Ilya,
growing very well. So.
Love that. Congrats on the eureka moments clearly are having and this new chapter of growth. That's awesome. I love your parents' immigration story. I'd love to hear a lot more about that. And then, of course, your mom, and in those wobbly of knees moments where your knees are knocking and shaking, and she's got your back. I love that. Tandreia, I'll tell you, between your coaching and Ilya's founder story, we could be here have a whole different version of the buzz. But what's one of your special heroes, Tandreia?
My great grandmother. My great grandmother was my rock, my heart. She really instilled my work ethic, which helped me tremendously with school and also with UPS. My great grandmother was born in 1904. Had a 6th grade education, but was the smartest person that I knew.
Wow.
She managed a household. She took care of budgets. She gave me so many life lessons that are still with me. I lost her in 1996, but I had my great grandmother until I was 32. So she is a huge, huge, huge part of who I am as a person.
Wow.
I used to tell her when I was young, okay, Grandma, when I go to college, you got to come and stay in the dorm with me.
Oh, man. And something tells me that she was fearless, probably ready to do that. So her name was Catherine. So
that's correct.
For all the Catherines out there, really appreciate that. And Ilya, your mother's name is?
Irene.
Irene. Okay. Well, let's take from just a quick moment to celebrate all the Catherines and Irenes out there that make so many things happen at home and at work and across industry every single day. Love that, Ilya and Tandreia. Really quick, Nadine, great to see you from Saudi Arabia, back with us on the buzz. Look forward to your perspective here today. We're going to figure out who this is from Indianapolis. I bet they might be a Colts fan. Amanda and Trisha, let me know. And finally, Trisha's also shared that earlier opportunity coming up in November, so check that out. Okay, we got a lot to get to here today, jam-packed. So we're going to get down to business here on the buzz, powered by our friends at AutoScheduler. A lot of good stuff. I'm going to start with one of my least favorite topics, yes, but we got to talk about it, tariffs and the ongoing trade war. But I want to start how this one interesting company is navigating this ongoing situation. So tariffs abound. I don't have to tell any of y'all that. Some of the newest announced tariffs from the White House include 25% tariffs on heavy trucks and truck parts, and a 10% tariff on buses, all set to go into effect November 1st. Our friends at Supply Chain Dive are reporting that furniture retailer Lovesac are seeing big gains from a 4-step tariff plan. Now, I don't know if y'all have seen the commercials. It's the couch I hope to be able to afford one day. It's really cool. They make more stuff than couches, but y'all may have seen the commercial. Now, they've got a fascinating approach to building modern-day, highly functional couches and other furniture, integrated furniture, as I'll call it. Nevertheless, their 4-step approach to mitigating the trade environment includes 1, negotiating new agreements with some of their longest-serving suppliers, 2, shifting production out of China, which eventually could be as low as, in terms of their production there, as low as 13 to 14% of overall production by February 2026. Number 3, price increases. Yes, a lot of customers are going to be paying some of those price increases. And number 4, cost cutting. Now, this is probably a playbook that countless other organizations are using as well, right? One last neat thing I find neat about Lovesac. The company says it has diverted over 180 million plastic bottles from landfill by incorporating the materials into its products. Get this, they chop up the bottles into flakes, then they melt the flakes into chips, which then they spin into yarn that's woven into its products. That is cool. But Ilya, back on this, the 4-step tariff mitigation approach, your thoughts?
Well, as a recovering management consultant, I would say the playbook looks familiar, right? Yeah. Raise pricing, lower costs. So I think nothing too out of the ordinary, or nothing jumps out. I could say that but based on our own customer base, we've certainly seen a lot of companies kind of address the whole China tariff concern and moving stuff out of China as quickly as possible. And I think the article certainly mentions that to neighboring countries. We haven't seen the kind of influx of nearshoring or onshoring into the U.S. that we thought we would. A lot of manufacturing, assembly, and production is still remaining outside of the country, and I'm sure domestic inflation maybe has something to do with that, but certainly there's still a tremendous amount of cost benefit from partnering with various European and Asian countries, especially for that kind of work. I think in our we don't do any work with obviously furniture retailers, but we do work in broader retail and especially in life sciences, and we've seen a lot of focus around cost reduction. Now, cost reduction looks different, I think, across different industries. In our industry, and especially in life sciences, it's looking for opportunities to move lanes from air to ocean. It's looking to remove, the amount of packaging or how long you're qualifying packaging for with thermal life. It's holding suppliers accountable with regards to performance and optimizing supplier selection and holding them accountable for SLAs and collecting on those SLAs and penalties. I think, a couple of maybe broader things that we saw in the article that also apply to what we're seeing. There's certainly been an influx of, and I would say this is anecdotally at this point, but there's been an influx of rail that's been used as a mode of transport. Yep. And then I think the article also mentions optimization of warehousing, and we've seen that across the board, across all industries. So a heavy investment into automation, heavy investment into visibility of in-transit cargo, and making sure that your warehouse crews kind of synchronize their labor, know when product is coming in, have the right slots appointed, have people ready, not having downtime of them waiting around for a truck or getting there too early or getting there too late. So I think there's been a fairly heavy investment across the board. But I think generally speaking, from what we saw in the article, no real surprises. Maximize revenue, reduce cost. It's the old tried and true playbook.
What's old is new again. Loved your perspective there, Ilya. And Tandreia, your thoughts on Lovesac's approach, at least.
As stated, the biggest surprise for me was that cost cutting was the last leg of the strategy.
Right.
You have a lot of organizations that start with cost cutting. And as we spoke about cybersecurity, you start out, you look at cost and say, oh, this cost is high and growing. We must have to cut it. We must need to cut it. And you can absolutely positively have negative impacts when you start indiscriminately cutting without truly understanding the importance of the connectivity, the dependencies before you start the cost cutting. So I was happy to see that cost cutting was the last leg.
Yes. Tandreia's a great call out. And our own Kim Reuter, one of our outstanding hosts that you've met. I know Tandreia and Ilya, you may have met her as well. Mm-hmm. She was in a related supply chain dive article talking about, hey, folks, call timeout. Make sure you understand all the inputs, where they're from. So then you can kind of put together a sound plan for where there's opportunities and where you're most susceptible to tariff impact. Mm-hmm. So good stuff there, Kim. Tandreia and Ilya, good stuff. Really quick couple comments. Let's see, Bobby. Bobby's tuned in from Indianapolis. He's at this HPCLC conference. Hey, Bobby, let us know some key takeaways there. Great to see you via LinkedIn. Tamaji from Seattle. We're waiting to get a weather report from Seattle, Tamaji. Great to see you here today. Let's see here. Hey, Ivan, the biggest Mets fan I know, at least east of the Mississippi, is here, tuned in from New Jersey. Great to see you, Ivan. And Trisha is posting links to all these articles, so go check that out. One more comment. Amanda says, hey, here's to all the Catherines and Irenes. Makes me tear up. I know Amanda's going through a Kleenex box right this moment. All right. So, Ilya, one of the things you mentioned was warehousing. That's where I want to go next, right, from the story from the Wall Street Journal. So, as reported by the WSJ, the world's largest owner of industrial real estate says warehouse leasing decision-making and overall demand is picking up steam. This comes after about 3 years of slower demand. Now, Chris Catan, I hope I'm getting his last name right, with Prologis said just last week that demand has, quote, clearly turned a corner, end quote. Cushman & Wakefield says that the average warehouse vacancy rate across the country, well, it remained flat at an 11-year high of 7.1% in third quarter 2025. That doesn't sound great. However, it's the first time in 3 years that vacancy rates, right, haven't increased. So it kind of reflects that we're seeing a pickup in activity. So Ilya, your thoughts on what we're seeing domestically with the warehouse industry?
Yeah, so I think it mirrors kind of some of the broader economic trends and lagging indicators, right? So inflation, the rate of inflation increase has certainly turned around. I think we've seen a lot of other economic indicators kind of start trending in a more positive direction over the last year. And so I think it's really a byproduct of at least a couple of different things. Number one is tariff uncertainty still looms large, and I'm sure people want to kind of shore up and make sure their capacity is there, especially given the seasonality.
Right.
So given what time of the year that we're in, given that we're coming up on holiday season and we've got Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, a lot of big dollar holidays coming up. And so it's really, I would say, not a surprise given both the economic indicators and given the uncertainty around tariffs, as well as I think the where we are in time of year.
So no surprises. That's good. I wish we all had less surprises day to day in global supply chain. But Tandreia, do you agree with Ilya? What did you see here in the warehouse space? And, by the way, I should level set Ilya and all y'all out there. Tandreia, I think the count is 1.27 million warehouses you've been in and out of throughout your career. Is that right?
About that, I think I think that's it. Yeah, I completely agree with Ilya. It'll be interesting to see what inventory levels are doing. So are we having increased demand just because inventories are expanding because of the uncertainty? If inventory levels remain the same and warehouse demand increases, then that means that consumer spending is moving in the right direction. That's going to help the economy. If inventory levels start to expand because it's just safety stock, then not as great a story.
Not as great a story, and we need more good stories, certainly. But hey, things that keep our finger on the pulse. I really appreciate that, Ilya and Tandreia. Salisu via X. Hey, thanks for resharing the buzz here today. I hope you have a big week ahead. Also looking forward to your perspective on the India stories here today. Vadia Nathan from India via LinkedIn. Great to see you here today. And the good old sheriff, Tevin E. Taylor, Tandreia, is here asking tough questions. Is demand picking up with warehousing or new builds slowing down to reduce capacity? It's a great question, Tevin. If you got answers, let us know. But great to see you, Tevin. All right. We're going to move right along in this jam-packed edition of The Buzz, powered by our friends at AutoScheduler. I want to pull up this story. Not only, folks, is October Manufacturing Month, but it is also Cybersecurity Awareness Month, as we established earlier. Now, here's an interesting read from our friends at CIO Dive, which offers up findings from a survey of over 200 CEOs and CIOs in the United Kingdom and the U.S. Clash of the Titans is not just a movie, right? What's old is new again. The research shows that more than 2 in 5 CIOs are clashing with their CEOs when it comes to spending more IT investment dollars. Kind of goes and supports that earlier data that we shared on the front end, Tandreia. Now, perhaps a root cause is this. 1/3 of CIOs say they were not confident that they knew exactly what their CEO wanted from them. That's telling. And only 36% of CIOs said their company is adequately investing in IT modernization. All right, Ilya, as we mentioned, we've seen a lot of this for quite some time. The 1/3 of CIOs figure, in terms they weren't exactly sure what their successful role was, essentially, they kind of surprised me. But your thoughts, Ilya?
Yes, I mean, earlier in my career, I was in supply chain strategy, and it was always very frustrating and telling for me to see, functions at all levels of the organization kind of optimize for whatever primary KPI they're optimizing for. So if you're in procurement or sourcing, you're optimizing for cost. If you're in quality, you're optimizing for zero defects. If you're in materials or operations, you're optimizing for inventory. So I think the fact that this bubbles up to the highest levels isn't overly surprising, where you have competing priorities. I think maybe a big contributor to this is the rate of technology change is changing so fast, and I would venture to guess that most CIOs have a deeper grasp and stronger understanding of that change and of technology in general than a lot of the CEOs, especially at large organizations. And now in our organization, we're a 40-person company. My co-founder and CTO and I have to be on the same page 100% of the time, or this is never going to work. So this is very unrelatable, I think, to most startups that are starting out or in the growth phase and kind of going from call it product market fit through scaling and growth, and you have to be rowing in the same direction. That you can't have a company that goes from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10 and then 10 to 100 without everybody rowing in the same direction. But at large organizations, it's once again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but not overly surprising. Again, I think it's technological proficiency that may be playing a role here, and the rate of change in general, where CEOs can't really keep up. They have a full-time job, right?
Right. Good stuff there. And Tandreia, one of the elements that Ilya just shared there in the unsurprising bucket, I'll put it, is something that I think of a lot, in this era where we can break down silos more powerfully than ever before. It seems in some cases we're building up silos more often than not. And when the CIO and the CEO aren't aligned on how each other view each other's roles, there's some serious silos. But your thoughts, Tandreia, in the overall story and the survey and some of the lack of alignment?
If with smaller companies, as Ilya said, absolutely positively, they have to be 100% in lockstep. With large multinational corporations, if that's the case, then the business strategy hasn't been defined, because they should be working towards the same goals for the same reasons with the same potential outcomes. And there shouldn't be that mismatch. It shouldn't be that disconnect if the company's strategy is sound.
Well said, Tandreia. Sounds like they need to be coached up a little bit, Tandreia and Ilya. We'll see. All right. A lot more stuff to get to here today on The Buzz, but I want to bring a special resource to the table, folks. And we covered this last week. Great new resource. So from our friends at AutoScheduler, Keith Moore and the team rolled out a free warehouse agent about 2 weeks ago. It's available to anyone out there. So if you want help forecasting labor against demand, or analyzing load boards and thinking through labor shifts, or drafting communications for carriers, or like where I need lots of help, crunching numbers and analyzing data, hey, use the warehouse decision agent for free. Do all of that and then some in minutes rather than days. We're going to drop a link right there in the chat so you can learn a lot more. Okay, Ilya, with this next section of The Buzz here today, me and Tandreia both want to dial it in a little bit more on your perspective and what you're seeing, especially as you and your team are doing big things in the cold chain space, which, gosh, some data projects, get this, folks, that the global cold chain market rather is going to grow from $380 billion here in 2020, or as it was last year in 2024, to a whopping $2.2 trillion in 2034. Oh my gosh. I should join you in that space, Ilya. Tandreia, you ready to form a cold chain company?
Come on in.
Key drivers include rising consumption of fresh and frozen food, growth of e-commerce groceries, tighter specs on temperature controls and pharmaceuticals, and much, much, much more. Now, Ilya, when it comes to the high growth cold chain industry, give us a few general observations in terms of trends or hot topics.
Yeah, so I think you mentioned some of the drivers. I would add aging populations definitely to that, especially on the life sciences side. Transportation infrastructure and being able to get medicines to third or parts of the world that were much harder to reach prior to now. Obviously, medical innovation, things like CAR T therapies that are highly effective at treating blood cancers and other types of diseases. It's really fascinating to see what's going on. I think our space, predominantly focuses on kind of that transportation and quality segment of the cold chain. So it's how do I most efficiently, most safely move my goods from point A to point Z, and then how do I ensure that those goods are safe for consumption, whether it's medicines or foods or whatnot. And we do see a lot of themes in the industry and in our space. I think, years ago, 2018, 2019, 2020, it was visibility.
Right.
We want visibility. We want to see where our product is. Now, I'd like to take the credit for being the first ones. To my knowledge, I think we were the first ones that kind of self-identified as orchestration back in 2019. And, we kind of envisioned this world where you have to synchronize labor, you have to synchronize what's happening with your transportation decisions, with your quality decisions, and truly become an orchestration platform. So I think the shift from visibility and this realization that visibility dot on the map is only going to go so far in getting you outcomes that you want. And it's really more so about aggregating that data with other valuable data that you have in your network to be able to drive decision making. Right? It's the ability to take action. I think that's been an underlying theme that we've seen. We've seen another theme in our space where, a lot of the businesses that were really, really hot in 2020, they're still hot, don't get me wrong, but like IoT device companies for one, maybe certain services, packaging, for example, and specific subsets of packaging. I think now people want a more agnostic kind of software solution where they don't need to train their employees on 10 different platforms. And 10, if you're using 3 different device providers, if you're using conventional devices versus real-time devices, if you're using packaging X versus packaging Y, today there's like 10 different softwares that you have to get to know, log into, try to bring all this data together, whether you're looking at passive data, real-time data, milestone data, telematics data, shipment documentations, which are typically in like ERP and TMS platforms, SOPs, which are in quality management platforms. All of that is not, there's no singular shipment record that ties it all together. There's been a massive shift in our world over the last 24 months with companies saying, you know what, I just want one unified standard experience with my platform, and I'm going to interchange what they view as the more commoditized aspects around it. So whether it's devices, whether it's packaging, whether it's 3PLs, 4PLs, or carriers. So that's been a pretty big, I would say, theme in the orchestration and visibility space over the last 2 years.
Ilya, you shared a lot of things that it could be a whole podcast series. Tandreia, synchronization, seamlessness, streamlining were some of the trends that he touched on. And I love his comments around thousands of apps and platforms, and we shouldn't have to become experts and super users and all those things. But Tandreia, what'd you hear from Ilya on some of the things going on in the cold chain space?
Actually, if I may, can I ask a question?
Sure. As long as Ilya's good with it.
How does the proliferation of all of these food recalls work into what you're doing from a orchestration standpoint? I mean, in the supply chain, typically, once the product was delivered, it was done. Now there's so many other things that are going on from specifically a food safety standpoint. What do you see in that space?
Yeah, I mean, it very, very similar thematically in the life sciences space as well. I mean, anytime that you have an influx of food recall or product damage, right, that's going to impact the entire value chain, starting with insurance, cargo insurance, and loss ratios, and of course, replacement product. Then there's root cause analysis that has to happen. There's obviously quality processes that have to come into play. I mean, it kicks off the entire value chain. So I would say anytime you have a plethora or a heightened, prolonged sense of product loss, that certainly helps the business case. For solutions like ours. I will say, a core driver has always been for a lot of these companies, it's everybody kind of, I would say, builds in loss ratios into their financial models. So people expect to lose product, right? Yep. It's really more so there's a lot of other costs associated around everyday decisions. Which routes are you taking? What modes of transport? How much packaging thermal life are you qualifying your packaging for? How much inventory, I think to your point, are you holding, right? In buffer stock, and how quickly is that inventory selling through? And so there's a lot of decisions that have to be made around cost. And today, all of that data still remains fragmented. So putting it all together under a singular shipment record eliminates those data silos and effectively enables you to make those real-time trade-off decisions. But certainly, I will say to your question, anytime that you see heightened levels of food rejection, recalls, I mean, even worse, safety, like people getting sick, potentially life-threatening, that is massive, massive, massive issue for the BCOs. And that's when they kind of, that adds a massive justification to the business case. Now, it's not just about cost. It's actually about compliance and safety and regulatory.
Okay. I tell you what.
Thank you.
$1 billion question, $1 billion answer. Stay tuned. More at 11. Ilya and Tandreia. Good stuff. Before I move on, I want to get to this blog article that I think created a lot of feedback out in the marketplace, Ilya. But before I do that, the one and only Claudia Freed is in the comments here. She fearlessly leads a great nonprofit called EAL Green, doing some really cool things. Claudia says focus is critical in navigating successfully navigating the sea of data. That's right, a tidal waves of data, and there's plenty more changes coming away. That's right, Claudia. And she also mentions integration is key to scaling. Excellent point. That's right. We got to integrate all this technology being thrown at us. Okay, so let's do this. Tandreia and Ilya. I got this little image I'm going to share. Now, interesting side note. This, I think, is a picture of me in one of my tougher days, Ilya. I don't know how y'all got into my home studio there, but I think we've all had days like that. That aside, I want to get into a couple of your key thoughts related to this blog article that is published over on the PAXAFE website. Now, here you talk about how the pharma logistics industry has defined its problems way too much at the surface level and somehow thought that was good enough. And you share this golden nugget, which is related to a lot of what we talked about here today. You say, quote, orchestration isn't about watching shipments. It's about continuously improving the entire life cycle, end quote. That's right. If we're only gaining some insights on our shipments with a successful orchestration platform and approach, we're in trouble. Ilya, tell us more here, huh?
Yeah, well, I guess let me, walk you through kind of the status quo of what's been done in our industry. I think first and foremost, you kind of go through this planning process, right? It's known as lane qualification. It's basically doing a lane risk assessment on a particular lane, selecting the right vendor mix for that lane, and making sure that everything from a compliance standpoint is set. You have things put in as a part of your standard operating procedures. You're good to go. And then you kind of set it and you forget it. So you have this SOP, you put it into place, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road, you have no idea. How did my original plan actually go compared to real world performance? And I think that's what we've seen in the cold chain space specifically. There's a lot of really, really good technologies that are out there. Data loggers, IoT devices, real-time like aggregation visibility platforms, who I'm sure you know, risk management platforms, even decision intelligence platforms that have been out there for well over a decade.
Right.
And they're really, really good at tracking commoditized goods. But when it comes to these, much more, I would say, sophisticated products, temperature sensitive, time sensitive, value sensitive. These are your life sciences. These are your food and beverage. These are your electronics. These are products where you can't mess around. And you need truly a vertical kind of software platform that ingrains itself deeply into existing workflows and helps you get things done. And so I think a lot of these solutions have been around for well over a decade. We haven't seen anything really move the needle in cold chain. Product loss ratios keep getting worse year over year. Operational inefficiencies still, remain rampant. And most importantly, people don't have the data and the information that they need at their fingertips to drive decisions in near real time. You still need to rely on expensive consultants. You still need to have, a plethora of data scientists. You need to analyze data in Power BI and all these tools. So there's nothing that kind of brings together both the planning aspect of what should have happened, what did I put in my SOP, and then autonomously looks at your real world performance data to create that feedback loop back into the planning process. Have AI that comes in and automates root cause analysis and corrective action and recommendations that are hyper contextual, that are based on your existing SOPs. So it's actually telling you what to do based on your existing processes and workflows.
Yes.
And I think that's really what we try to call out there in that blog post is, you can't keep doing the same things over and over again and expect to get a different result. You truly have to understand the nuances of the problem in cold chain. And I can go deep into that for days if you'll have me.
I bet. Well, first off, we're dropping a link to the blog article right there. Thank you, Trisha. I appreciate that. So y'all go give it a read. Let us know your thoughts. Let Ilya know. I bet he welcomes your take, whether you agree with anything he says or disagree. Secondly, Tandreia, I think Jim Croce was singing about two things. Things you don't mess around with, Jim and cold chain. You don't mess around with either of those two things. I think that's how the whole song goes. But what do we hear there from Ilya, Tandreia?
I think it really, really points out that cold chain is different. So not only can you not do the same things you've always done, you can't do the same things that are done in other transportation chains. And understanding how to properly optimize is different for cold chain. I think we put more constraints on ourselves simply because it is cold chain, and we don't because the information is siloed. You don't optimize it as well as it should be done because you're doing it in silos. And that is a great call out.
Yep. Every industry and every sector believes it's different in many ways. And then there's a handful that probably really is different and that you don't want to mess around with. As Ilya said, that certainly is cold chain in that smaller bucket. All right. So Ilya, really quick, in our remaining time we've got here, and we're going to get Tandreia's patented key takeaway before we wrap here, the Buzz powered by AutoScheduler. So PAXAFE has been on a tear, it sounds like. I've enjoyed rubbing elbows with you and your team over the years, and it sounds like you are rocking and rolling right now. What does an organization do in a nutshell? And then secondly, what's one project you're really excited about here as we're coming down the home stretch for 2025?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what do? We are logistics orchestration and decision intelligence specifically for temperature controlled logistics. So in a nutshell, we help planning, transportation, and quality teams essentially do three things. Number one is eliminate data silos and number of logins that they have to use via a data agnostic, basically transportation control tower, which we call command center. That brings in all of this data agnostically. Number two is we help digitize and automate key portions of the actual workflows. So things like lane qualification, exceptions management, temperature and product release. You can only do that if you're GXP validated in our space, and we are GXP validated. It's, I hate to say that it's a moat, but it is somewhat of a moat because it's not easy to do that. And then number 3 is we help companies and people essentially make better decisions faster using their own network's data. That's probably simply put, we have AI that injects itself all throughout the platform, whether it's looking at live shipments and essentially silencing noise and highlighting shipments that are actually at risk. Whether it's looking at kind of that feedback loop and aggregating data after the fact and then telling you what you can do better tomorrow. Those are the kinds of things that our platform does today. What am I really excited about? So I think one of the big themes that I didn't mention earlier, but that we do see is agentic solutions and agentic workflows. I think that's one of my most recent blog posts is actually just about that, where you have to be able to discern what is real versus what is smoke and mirrors. I think building agentic without having the right infrastructure in place is very dangerous. You're going to your agents are not going to be able to do what's necessary without the right infrastructure in place, without really a full understanding of the entire workflows and a full segmentation of even those workflows. You really need agents performing one core aspect of one core workflow. And so we're introducing our first set of agents in Q4 of this year. And I think because we are a vertical software and because we are deeply ingrained into these organizations, existing workflows and decision-making and automation, these agents from what we've already kind of been testing with our partners are going to be highly, highly effective. And so we're very excited about that. And that's probably, what I'm most excited about in terms of what we're working on.
I would be too. And maybe your agents can help my beloved Atlanta Falcons a better offense. We shall see. Hey,
I don't know if there's hope for that. Sorry.
As the Colts fan, the Colts are doing big things this year.
That's right.
Hey, that is outstanding news. Congrats on the growth. Congrats on the new initiatives here this year, new innovations. And one of the core things, Tandreia, that he mentioned they help teams do, make better decisions faster. And my hunch is they even help eliminate some of the decisions that very busy humans have to make out in our global supply chains. And I love that. Tandreia, quick your response before we make sure folks know how to connect with you both and we round things out.
Scott, this is our 1,503rd podcast together. And guess what? We're still talking about the importance of data. When he started, he said, the first thing that they help do is eliminate data silos, because if your data isn't integrated properly, there's no way you can make the correct organizational decisions.
Yep.
So once again, data wins.
It does. It sure does. And we keep talking about it because industry doesn't listen to us. Maybe, right? But you got to tune in, folks, to great resources, innovators like Ilya and Tandreia, and folks that have been there and done that. And we try to facilitate that really easily, almost every day of the week here at Supply Chain Now. Okay, let's do this. I've got a question from Tom, which I want to answer here in a second. But first, Ilya, let's make sure folks know how to connect with you and Ivan and the whole team on the move over there at PAXAFE.
Yeah, first name at PAXAFE.com. So in my case, it's Ilya at PAXAFE.com. You can also find me at Ilya Preston on LinkedIn. You can also find me in Indianapolis today at the HPCLC conference. If you're here at the Marriott, swing on by. We're here, Bobby, Chris, and myself. Where else can you find me? I think those are probably the big ones.
That's a lot of places. And we're going to make it even easier. We're going to drop Ilya's LinkedIn profile right there. So connect, follow him, engage with him right there. And before we get out of here, I got a couple final questions for you, Tandreia. What's your favorite key takeaway from this holistic and big conversation we've had here with Ilya? And how can folks connect with you?
My key takeaway is people really need to tune in to Supply Chain Now to continue to get educated. Even with great conferences all over the world, it's really difficult to try and get all of this information on your own. So, Scott, you do a tremendous service to all of us by finding these incredibly informative guests that bring the information to us. So thank you. And I'm always available on LinkedIn, Tandreia Bellamy.
It's just that easy. You're way too kind, Tandreia. But hey, we love doing it. We've loved doing it for a long time. And, as you mentioned, it's like 2 million episodes. I can't wait. We're going to be thrilled with it at 4 million and then 6 million. There's so many different stories to cover with the innovators like you both. They're doing some really cool things. So, and we want to be connectors, very effective connectors. So to that end, I'm also dropping a link. Thank you, Tricia. PAXAFE right there. You can learn more. You can check out that blog article, you name it. And be sure to follow and connect with Tandreia Bellamy right there on LinkedIn as well. Now, before we get out of here, we're going to thank everybody. But Tom sent me a note and asked me, who the heck is Jim Croce? Well, Tom, so all I'm going to say is go Google You Don't Mess Around with Jim, which the legendary Jim Croce, which left us way too soon, coined and published in 1972. And amongst those other things you don't mess with, cold chain and Jim, you don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't like that. But go check out Jim Croce and all his tunes. Okay, Tandreia, again, thanks for your key takeaway. Really appreciate Tandreia Bellamy being here with me. Ilya Preston, co-founder and CEO of PAXAFE. Really enjoyed your perspective here today. Thank you for challenging how we've always done things in cold chain and in industry. So great to have you here, Ilya.
Anytime, Scott. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Enjoy the great conference there in Indianapolis. Tandreia, look forward to breaking bread with you soon, my friend. Of course, big thanks to Amanda and Tricia behind the scenes, helping to make production happen each and every day. And most importantly, big thanks to our global audience for being here with us. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as I have. But you got homework, folks. Tandreia and Ilya both dropped a ton of knowledge on us. You got to take one thing you heard here from our esteemed panel, share it with your team, put it into practice. Deeds, not words. That's how we're going to continue changing how global supply chain happens and leave no one behind. So with that said, on behalf of the entire Supply Chain Now team, Scott Luton challenge you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. We'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.